In my previous video, I covered a small selection of my issues with Video Games Europe and their statement against Stop Killing Games. One of the issues I took is that they claim private servers create a community safety issue, implying that for matters of moderation of conduct, private servers will be unable to deal with this, while their members can, even while their member Roblox has recently been shirking that responsibility, claiming it's a broader issue requiring government intervention. And of course, their statement doesn't just apply to private servers, but to any indie project that lacks the financial resources to implement such moderation services they say are necessary. Remember, they're not here for the little guys. They would prefer you choke to death or get purchased. For God's sake, Embracer is represented on their board. These are the types of people who would control literally everything if they could. And might I dare to suggest that this kind of argument is very appealing to governments who would shove cameras up everyone's asses if they could get away with it. I think the relationship between industry and government and their use of safety rhetoric is probably worth multiple videos all on its own. However, there is another kind of safety they warn of separately, one I'm sure many will find to be more legitimate. Separate from the community and content argument, they argue facilitating private servers could open you to bad actors and, let's call it, more direct technological harm. For instance, you may have seen that very recently, Activision, who are represented by and on the board of Video Games Europe, had to pull Call of Duty World War II from the PC Game Pass because it was extremely dangerous. What a wonderful showing of how responsible they are. Multiple people more tuned into the tech side of things than I am absolutely a layman, have informed me that Activision have in fact been exposing their users to danger like this for years. Trying to look into this as an ignorant pleb, I ran across this video that starts like this.
I'm just going to cut straight to the chase on this. A vast majority of Call of Duty games pre-Modern Warfare 2019 are not safe and are not worth playing on Steam, especially the games that run off of player-to-player connections and not server browsers, which are the games that I'm putting up on screen right now. There are security risks, and it is not worth the risk of playing these games on Steam without the necessary protections.
Oh, okay, so I just need to download some safety stuff from
My advice is to play them on the clients such as Plutonium and Alterware. These are the safest and most up-to-date options you have for a majority of the older Call of Duty games.
Like I said, I'm not a tech guy, but sure sounds to me like what's been going on in this industry is a big player's been selling something dangerous, and players have had to resort to third-party solutions to protect themselves. Not quite the story that Video Games Europe is selling us about its members, is it? This is tinfoil hat, and I'm not suggesting it's true. But you know what would hypothetically be really disgusting? What if they added the digital death trap COD World War II to Game Pass on June 30th, just for this to happen on purpose, so that they could show how responsible they are, taking it down so everyone's safe? And what would happen if that were just privately run, when they haven't been quite so responsible in the past? I'm just saying, Microsoft's one of their members too, which shouldn't be a surprise, and of course, they own Activision nowadays. It's just weird looking around the net, because gamers are aware of these issues. Gamers solve these issues. You're telling me they had no idea that there were risks the way they put it on Game Pass? I'm sure that's not what happened though. That would be a digital attack to further political goals. Some might call that cyber-terrorism. Though I would suggest that if anyone in the industry tries to in any way point to this as an example of responsible action being taken when things go wrong in a way that gamers might not do, or you know, look what can go wrong for Microsoft and Activision. Imagine the horrors on a private server. It suddenly becomes much more suspicious, and at that point should probably be thoroughly investigated, and not just internally. Just want to get this idea out there quickly, in case some Video Games Europe ghoul tries to use this to make a point. Anyway, like I said before, it's not just the arguments that have me pissed off, it's who it's fucking coming from. We couldn't possibly have end-of-life plans for our live service games. That would expose consumers to too much danger. Have you considered instead just buying our vulnerable broken shit? Because you see, when they're making money, who cares if your computer explodes? As I've stated, my commentary on such things is severely limited by my lack of expertise, so I'd like to field a further question about security risks to the tech bros. Let's say a live service game shuts down. It has an end-of-life plan and provides some way for players to replicate something of the experience it once was. I splash whatever cash is necessary to get it going, but I'm not trying to replicate the original. It's not for the world, I'm not inviting everyone to it, it's just for me and a couple buddies, who also owned the game. What kind of risk am I incurring there? Would it be more risky than playing one of the Call of Duties by official means that Activision is still selling? I get that the peer-to-peer stuff is different, but let me also ask, would it be more risky than connecting up to a live service game from some no-name indie dev that spun one up, and invited the world to come play on their service that no one knows anything about? I've just got this funny feeling that the industry would like more than just Stop Killing Games gone. Now, I've said this before, but it bears repeating. You are up against, essentially, the closest thing to demons that walk the earth. They will take any shape, any form they need to get what they want. And they have zero regard for honesty. A long-time right-to-repair advocate with an interesting perspective on Stop Killing Games recently highlighted an issue of just how slippery Video Games Europe is. While covering their statement, he noticed this.
Competition from community-supported versions. Such a requirement could lead to community-supported versions of games competing with official versions, potentially jeopardizing the financial investments of the video game companies. How could it compete with your version when you've disabled? Here's the saying the quiet part out loud here. This is kind of like what the guy at Camera Research is saying. If you can get a repair, you may not buy a new one. You're taking money away from us. If people can still play Call of Duty 18, they may not buy Call of Duty 19. The ability to revoke access to what you bought and paid for is crucial and essential, as ChatGPT would say, M dash, to the functioning of our ability to charge you again.
And this is what I imagine I'm going to point out a million times before this is done. They use the language of safety, but obviously, demonstrably, don't really care, unless they have to. They'll try to make it about controlling what they own rightfully. But what are they really scared of? What did we just hear from them that Lewis was commenting on? They're scared of your behavior. What they want control of is you. There's this book. You might have heard of it. It's called 1984. In this story, there is something called Newspeak, a controlled and simplified language. In a nutshell, the idea is, if people aren't able to vocalize a thought, if they're not even able to put it together in the form of language in their mind, it's harder to even have that thought. If the industry manages to successfully architect a world in which future generations will only ever engage with software, or specifically games, via subscriptions, under terms that it can be revoked for any reason, if kids grow up and that's just the way everything is, you play Gleeblezorb 1 until they kill it, then you have to play Gleeblezorb 2 until they kill it, then you have to play Gleeblezorb 3 until they kill it. Then for them, going back and playing something old isn't even a memory. They've never seen it. What do you mean, own a game? I rent services. It won't just be in the fine print. It won't just be in the law. What they want is to get in your kid's head. Because they're not going to fight for something they can't even strongly conceptualize, are they? It would sound a bit nutty and far-fetched if not for the fact, and I'll hammer on this as many times as I need to, they've told us they're doing this. And they've told us it benefits them. By the way, speaking of subscriptions, did you know that Video Games Europe represents Netflix? This of course makes sense because they have a gaming division, but I thought I'd share a funny story I saw. Now, Netflix is often demonized as a gigantic threat to preservation, a massive lost media risk. They've allowed some efforts, like that by the British Film Institute, to protect certain materials, but I understand people's concerns, and there was a very interesting instance of some media being lost recently. There's a good chance you've heard of Black Mirror Bandersnatch. It was an interactive episode that, alongside another show, was removed from the platform back in May, having removed all the other interactive experiences the year before. Why were they nuked? What's on Netflix reported that it's a result of a redesign that phased out the tech needed to play them. Platform change multi-kill, and that was of course the only official place to watch it. The conversation around Stop Killing Games is focused on individual products, but maybe this is a glimpse of the kind of massacres we'll see if there's enough of a shift to subscription services. Sorry, gamer, every product under this player count gets wiped. Apologies for the inconvenience. Thought I'd just end on a cheerful note. With so much uncertainty, sometimes it's good to cling on to something you can be sure of. You know, that everything can always get much, much worse.